You might not have heard of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. We are a network of over 700 organizations that's loosely organized with partners among national governments and national statistical offices and ministries, academia, NGOs, nonprofits, multilateral organizations across mainly Africa, Latin America. So we work a lot with low and middle income countries in those places to help improve the availability and use of data for sustainable development. And so, how did we come? Oh, I was going to just briefly note that I should say that when I first joined the Global Partnership in 2021, I worked on this campaign, but in the past few years, I've come off of this, and now my colleague Fatuma manages this campaign. She wasn't able to make it today, but I'm going to add her information at the end. And I just thought I would say this is a little bit about me, and this is my email address. So even though I'm presenting on the data values campaign, I'm not the person primarily to speak to about that. But if you'd like to talk about data sharing, especially between public and private sectors, if you'd like to talk about the use of administrative data for statistics, or using AI in development, I am the person at the Global Partnership to talk to. One thing I wanted to flag too was that the toolkit that you brought up was really aligns with some focus groups that we've been holding with statisticians in countries where statistics are highly contested, about ways that especially heads of statistics departments can operationalize independence in the context of very, very difficult political situations. So I think it's a very interesting question. And what comes up over and over again is the importance of building trust with the public. So, but on to the main event. The Data Values Project is a global policy and advocacy movement aiming to spark dialogue and catalyze action to ensure a fair data future for all. What does that mean? Well, that's a good question. When we launched the Data Values campaign in 2021, we had more than 300 people who weighed in on what could be some of the we really tried not to use the word ethics because it felt very, moralistic, but instead, what were some of the guidelines that could be helpful, not just to big, data holders, but to smaller NGOs or nonprofits or governments or other data producers? What were some guidelines they could adopt in order to avoid increasing harm and increasing inequality in the use of data? And this was the problem statement that we developed. So I'm not going to read it to you because I know you can read it. And we'll just go straight on to the manifesto. What came out of that campaign were these 5 points for how to increase how to increase the increase accountability and participation and equity in data collection and use. And the first one was to support people to shape how they are represented in data. And this was really tricky because how do you phrase or how do you think about what we want to say is that, if you're making data, if you're creating a data point about me, then I should have some say in how that data point is defined and developed and used, right? But how do you do that, for example, when it's about environmental data about in my neighborhood? And of course, everybody's familiar with these ideas of like collective ownership. Now, at this point, it's been several years, but back when we were doing this, it was a little bit like, how do we decide? How do we put into words what we're hearing from people, which is that we want to have a say. We want to have a say in including if we're even included at all. Some people just don't want to be included at all. And how do you when for example being included brings risks of harm, then how do you put these into words that make sense just upon first glance? So that was the first one. The second was invest in public participation for accountability, and this is kind of what we've been talking about today. We know that this is not a switch that you can switch on and off But instead, this is something that happens kind of along a continuum, right? And at some points more or less, and it depends a lot on the capacity of the data holders and data producers and the knowledge of the data holders and producers and the willingness of people to engage. So this is, again, very complicated. We've put it into one line: invest in public participation for accountability. And the third one is about data skills, the ability to engage with data, not just data literacy, but rather the ability to actually engage with the data and with the data processes. Number four was cultures of transparency, data sharing and use. And the last is a funding point to encourage governments and donors to put money into developing open and responsive data systems. As part of this campaign, so we developed this manifesto. We had all these people weigh in on it. Everyone was very excited about it. We launched it. And as part of that, we launched this program called Data Values Advocates. And we are now in our third. I didn't keep a copy of my slide deck here, so I don't have the. Yeah, okay, just had to check ahead. um, We're in our third cohort of data values advocates right now. And the data values advocates are grassroots kind of individuals who are already working in the data aligned space on usually at governments, nonprofits, NGOs, not often at the private sector. And they are uh, tasked with finding ways to bring the data values manifesto to life in their communities. And it's been a really fantastic program to bring people in who really are very passionate about ethical data use, and then to empower them to speak to their communities and to make change in their communities. I think energizes the whole ecosystem up and down, to have people who are really excited about that. So we've done 20 advocates from 20 countries, and when we first started out, when we had some funding for this campaign, we were doing like fellowships, kind of fellowship style advocate, and now at this point we're doing more like partnerships with existing organizations who sponsor their own advocates, and then that means that we can then provide support within our constraints. So I thought I'd show a video of an advocate from 2020. And I think I can just sit here quietly. Can everyone see the video? I know there might be a bit of a lag time, but hopefully the bandwidth is good enough. So let's try it.
I am Mayuri Dhumal. I am a writer, researcher, campaigner, and data values advocate. My work looks at how women and marginalized communities in India are discriminated in race, caste, class, and their identities. I wanted to become data values advocate to ensure that narratives from women's marginalized perspectives are heard by mainstreams. This program was looking at data values with democratization of data skills. It wanted to ensure that participation of people is there in data processes. In India, 58% of households don't have access to running water. There is a commitment from the government that all households should get running water every day. But in practicality, that does not happen, which means water has to be collected from the well, and this job falls to women and girls. This often means when the women and girls are collecting water, they can't access paid employment and education. There is no data on how much water they are carrying. Using the Strava app, we track the distance that women and girls walk to collect water, around 2,000 kilometers every year. This isn't captured in the official data. India has said that it has made progress towards the UN SDG 6, as 97% of the population is using a safely managed drinking source, ignoring the fact that this is only possible because rural women walk an average of 5 kilometers every day in order to collect it. Being a data values advocate has meant that I can show politicians what change is needed and connect the women and girls with the way of quantifying the work that they do in order to advocate for them. Based on the data that I collected, we were able to get the local government to come into the community and make changes to the water system. It was brilliant to see the impact that data can have. and that transparent data can hold leaders accountable for their decisions. Data systems need to be built that include everyone, regardless of their backgrounds, so that they are helped and empowered.
Could everyone hear that all right? Did it come through with the sound and the video quality? Great. Zoom's really improved their YouTube integration. Um, so Mayuri was one of our first cohort of advocates, and what she was seeing in her community was that especially local politicians were saying, like, look at what we've done. We've created this incredible situation where everyone has access to water. And she was going, this is not the case. This simply just isn't true. And because of her efforts, she got that the community that she was working in now has a like an actual water source within the community. So um, I think what the Data Values campaign did for her was give her a platform where she could work on these issues. So, how am I doing on time? Okay, I'm going to do like five more minutes. So this is our current cohort. Um, I would read you their names, but I've hidden my speaker notes on accident. So I will share the website at the end and you can go meet our current advocates. They are from Kenya, India, Zimbabwe, the US, Zambia, and there's a couple more countries that I am forgetting. We also just launched an e-learning course on the data values project. These are just some screenshots that I took yesterday. Um, and this was developed by, I should say, by the Data for Social Impact initiative at the Center for Social Development at Washington University in St. Louis, who partnered with us to create this e-learning course. And you should go check it out. It's really great.